Hey everybody, Alex here for Nerdy Inc. with Steve, of course.
Remember me?
We're coming at you with our official season 6?
It is 6.
Season 6 review of Game of Thrones. Season 6 in its entirety. Like sort of the last review, we're just going to sort of talk through it, basically character by character, rather than give you one of our sort of standard 3-4 minute reviews.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this season too is that in order to sort of, because like now we're way ahead of the books, so in order to give George R. R. Martin time to write the books, they went to the internet and grabbed as much fan fiction as possible, and then filmed the fan fiction. So this is our review of Game of Thrones season 6, the fan fiction edition.
Yeah, we should say right off the bat that if you loved everything about this season, you're going to want to shut off this review, because I think we have more of a negative opinion than most people do of this season.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I thought the season started out pretty solid.
Yeah, there were a couple episodes that I felt like this is the most Game of Thrones that it's felt in a while.
Since like the first season.
Yeah.
Like things felt very like nitty gritty, and like things were sort of happening, and you felt like people were being moved around in places that were good, even though that first episode was a little quick to pull the trigger on quite a few characters.
And this is it's a weird thing for this season, because it felt like, when you say fan fiction, basically what we mean is that it basically gave you everything you wanted exactly the way you thought you wanted it.
Yes.
Because I had talked to several people at the beginning of the season, you know, when we're all excited, like, oh, is Jon Snow going to come back, and all that stuff. And they said, I want Jon Snow to come back, and I want him to kill Ramsay Bolton. And then as we got a little bit closer, it's like, oh, when Ramsay fed his stepmother and cousin, stepbrother, whatever, how that relationship is, he fed them to the dogs, and everyone's like, I want those dogs to eat him at the end of the season. I want him to get fed to the dogs. And everything happened just the exact way that you would have predicted it would.
Yes.
And so that was... But we'll get into the specifics of everyone's storyline in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, while we're at it, let's just start with Jon Snow.
Okay.
Because obviously he was hella dead at the end of last season.
Yes.
The end of last season, right? And it was shocking. And immediately, within 5 seconds of the finale airing, people who didn't read the books were already like, he's coming back.
Yes.
There's gonna, like, Melisandre was there. There's gonna be some witch magic, and he's gonna come back.
Which is fine, I think.
Yeah, it was fine, and
it wasn't a Glenn from Walking Dead caliber fake out.
I don't think it works against the show that Jon came back, right? Like,
No. That's fair.
I think book readers like myself had obviously predicted for a while, and there's a way to make characters come back and have it affect the plot moving forward in a way that wasn't just like, oh, they're dead, no, they're not. They're dead, no, they're not. They're dead, no, they're not. And then they just lose all stakes, like superhero comics.
I would like to see, and this is something George R. R. Martin said would happen. I have yet to actually see any real change, but he said when the character is going to come back, he's going to be very different. I was hoping I would get a little bit more of a darker, more vengeful Jon Snow.
Well, he put his hair up in that like man bun.
Oh, that's true. He had the man bun.
So that's something he learned in hell.
For the first, he didn't come back to the end of the second episode.
Yeah, it was the end of the second.
So for the first 2 episodes, he didn't do anything. Comes back, says, I'm quitting the wall, which, okay. And then
the 2 weeks notice.
Gave him 2 weeks notice. And then for the next couple episodes, he just sort of went house by house trying to find an army. He got the wildlings on his side. He got Lyanna Mormont, who everyone loves, on his side.
She's a spunky kid.
She is a spunky kid. And then we go into the battle, which, from a storytelling standpoint, was lackluster, but from a technical standpoint, was perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's what I said when I saw it too. Like, probably the best like medieval battle scene I've ever seen put to film.
Yes.
But, and this is what's so interesting about, and this is why you're all hating us right now, like, that's the first time the show ever had, like, a pure good guy against a pure bad guy.
Yes.
Ever. Like, if you consider, like, the Battle of Blackwater, right? Like, you had two competing, you had the Lannisters, and then you had Stannis and Davos and people mixed up in between there. And that battle is really interesting because you're watching how the fight is affecting people, and you don't really have a side to root for. You're just sort of watching this stuff unfold.
Because you as a member of the audience know that Stannis is right. He has the best claim to the throne because he's the younger brother of Robert, who's
even
the king.
Even if you don't like him.
Even if you don't like him, I mean, he's a religious zealot in that world. He believes in occults, I guess.
Yeah, burning his own daughter.
Yeah. But you know that he's right, and you want him to be the king more than you want Joffrey to be the king. But by the law of the land, as far as everyone knows, Joffrey really is the king. Yeah. So he is a tyrant.
And plus, you have like Tyrion in the mix. He's got his own stuff going on. You have these stakes.
What's the word? Not tyrant. Tyranny.
Tyranny.
He's going up against the king. But yeah, you have Tyrion, who you like, and you don't want anything bad to happen to Tyrion, right. And you like Podrick, and you like. I don't think the Hound is particularly sympathetic at that point.
Yeah.
But you don't want him to lose. So it was really, you had a lot of mixed feelings as you're watching this battle.
Yeah.
But you're right.
And then you cut to Battle of the Bastards, and it's just like Jon is just
you have Westeros Hitler basically going up against Westeros Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good. Yeah, that's a apt description.
Yeah, it was the Jesus symbolism is applies a little bit.
Yep.
But and of course you're sitting there and you know the whole battle Jon is getting beaten down. So I don't think anyone could have possibly been surprised when Sansa shows up with Peter Baelish. They knew that was going to happen. But that's the problem is you knew what was going to happen.
Yep.
As beautiful and gorgeous as that scene looked, you knew exactly what was going to happen from the minute it started. And like the fact that Rickon died was the most what?
I want to know how that meeting went with him in like contract negotiations. Like you haven't been in the show for like freaking 3 seasons. We're gonna bring you back for like 2 episodes and then we're gonna kill you off. Cool, we'll give you like a couple $1,000.
Yeah. But the problem with Rickon dying is that's almost too perfect of a character to kill.
Yeah.
Because you as an audience member don't have any emotional attachment to him, but you know that he's important to the other characters. So that's the logical character to kill. But the show is predicated on not doing the logical thing. It's meant to surprise you and pull the rug out from underneath you. And so and this is wildly unpopular, but I almost would have liked it if Jon Snow died.
Yeah, like in the battle?
When Melisandre said what type of god would bring a person back just to kill them, a George R. R. Martin god would do that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think Jon Snow's plot armor is like too thick.
Yeah, he's too important to the story.
Even a show like Game of Thrones, they already pulled that once with the Ned Stark thing, and then sort of again with Robb Stark.
But something to that degree of unpredictability, I would have liked more.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Or just a different outcome for the battle, or a different way that things unfolded, even if Jon ended up winning. There were no losses for him in that. You lost the giant.
Wigwam, what was his name?
Wigwam, some combination of that.
1-1.
Yeah, but there were no like real personal law. Like Tormund survived. I didn't expect that. And that he's basically the only guy.
Yeah, everyone else was all just unknowns, basically. Fodder. So I don't want to undersell that battle in terms of spectacle I had to, because the thing that impressed me the most about it was, besides there were some great visuals, particularly with like all the arrows firing, but it did a great job in terms of maintaining space, because that's one of the things that really irks me in a battle scene is if it gets so chaotic and hectic that you lose track of where people are.
Sure.
Let's just say, hypothetically, you had a fantasy battle wherein 5 different armies were fighting in a battle.
Yeah, hypothetically.
Hypothetically, if there was a battle between 5 armies, and there were small little halflings and dwarves and elves and wizards and orcs, all and it's very easy to lose what's going on in that battle.
Yes, it would just look like somebody
just threw everything at the wall.
Threw a bunch of code in a computer program and said, "Make me a battle." And
so this was a very chaotic looking, but still it maintained the space and it maintained.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
So Like I can't say
chaos of the Battle across without losing where
we are.
Yeah.
So I can't give props enough to that battle. That was a great battle. So anyway, on to, you want to talk about Sansa?
Yeah, so let's talk about Sansa. She's kind of the direct connection there. I was really happy the show seemed to like course correct Sansa this season, because I think a lot of people last season were upset that bad things were still happening to her, but she wasn't really reacting to them. And when they did happen to her, it felt like they were moving the emotion onto another character that wasn't her, like when Ramsay raped her. But this season, she finally feels like she's learned from Littlefinger, who's been sort of manipulating her this whole time, but also kind of mentoring her, because he's kind of into her a lot.
Not kind of. He's explicitly into her.
Into her, yeah, explicitly. What she knows, Sansa's not dumb. And I don't know if she ever was dumb, but I think the showrunners undersold her ability to be sort of conniving.
They played her as the crying innocent girl a little too long.
Yeah, I agree. And this season, it finally felt like they sort of brought her into her own, and she was sort of, making deals with Littlefinger behind Jon's back, and like this other stuff. So she sort of got an agency of her own that I don't think she had really at all the previous season. She had no agency. She just terrible things happened to her from one thing to the next. That's all I really have to say about Sansa, because for all her emotional change, she didn't do a whole lot aside from...
Well, very little happened with them this whole time.
Yeah, aside from dragging Littlefinger into this mess.
Yeah, basically every one of Jon Snow's posse brought a new chunk of army. Tormund brought the wildlings, Davos convinced Mormont to give an army, Sansa convinced Littlefinger to bring his army, and that was the North.
Yep. Where to now?
So let's go to Essos.
We'll zoom out of the map.
And zoom into Essos. I have so many problems with this storyline. I don't even know where to begin. I do know where to begin. Daenerys Targaryen.
Okay.
This was almost like watching a clip show of season 1, in my opinion.
What do you mean by clip show?
You know how when a TV show runs out of money, like I'm thinking of the Shades of Grey episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. They run out of money, which you haven't watched, and they just pull clips from episodes prior to sort of make like a recap almost.
Yeah, okay, sure.
That's what this felt like. They said, well, we forgot where Daenerys has come from, so let's take her, put her in a helpless position with the Dothraki, let's set her on fire, have her earn the respect of the Dothraki.
She basically really quickly did the whole season 1.
So she just redid that whole thing.
It felt like a gigantic waste of my damn time.
Yes.
But on the meta level, they're just holding off.
They needed to delay.
For her to get ships. It's so obviously evident that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's frustrating that for the first, I gave Daenerys 3 seasons. With the first 3 seasons, it made sense. She's over there, she's learning to lead, she grows the dragons, and then she sort of takes the slaves and acquires an army. And even the 4th season, where she's realizing she's not the best leader, that's fine. But then it's so long of her just doing nothing.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think a lot of that is George R. R. Martin's problem, because he's sort of the one that he's said that the Myronese knot that he created was this big complicated issue that he has no clear way of doing. So I think the show was sort of trying to like take a hatchet to the knot and just try and like cut it open, and then like Tyrion was stuck there for a little while. It's like anybody who comes there just got stuck there.
It's a black hole of story.
Yeah, it's a black hole of story. And I think that like you're dealing with like slaves and slavery, so you need this like, you want this like righteous hero thing, but then you're also trying to avoid like the white savior thing, so then you're trying to give slave characters agency, and then you're just sort of, nothing has to do with anything else going on in the show, and it's just this constant cycle of like, well, we can't just leave them like this. Like, you can't just get up and leave.
And I'm glad you brought up Tyrion, because his sentence in the last episode baffled me beyond belief. When he says, I'm a cynic, I don't believe in anything, but you, Daenerys, you give me something to believe. What did she give him to believe in? Yeah. She was gone the whole season.
You have dragons.
She was gone the whole season. He did all the work. She comes back, her dragons kill a couple people, and then he's like, you done good. She didn't do anything. So I think Tyrion That was a very clear example of show don't tell, or telling instead of showing, is they told us that Tyrion looks up to, like, sort of believes in Daenerys, but we have no reason to see why that would that would be.
Also,
You look like you had a giant epiphany.
I can't believe how like underutilized Tyrion was this entire season. He might as well like not have been there, honestly.
Yeah.
Like he was just a placeholder for Daenerys till she, like, literally there was not one, like, usually Peter Dinklage is a highlight of the show that you're constantly looking forward to watching him play with other things, and
all he did was
I can't remember anything. He had this thing with Varys and the Masters, and he tried to be manipulative, and he wasn't.
And he told, well, you're forgetting the very important plot point of he told Grey Worm how to tell a joke.
Oh, right, that's right.
He told him how to tell a joke, and that was his character arc, was that
that
Grey Worm cannot tell jokes.
Okay, so it's Essos, but there's one piece we're missing.
Which is Varys can teleport from Marine to Dorne and back.
Okay,
in a period of a week.
So we have a few directions we could go here. So let's talk about the Iron Islands as a place that exists in the show for some reason.
I gotta say, I like the Theon Yara dynamic.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that Yara recognizes that she's the stronger of the two siblings. She tried to become the queen, and Theon backed her. But then her uncle is a piece of trash and murdered their father and tried to take over. Successfully took over. That was an interesting little side story that I forgot about every time the camera left them.
Yes. Yep.
Because that was just the one that I felt was the most divorced from anything else that was going on. Was just there's all of this intrigue going on between all these other places with all these long-running characters, and then it's over here that they're trying to figure out who their king is. It wasn't bad. It just felt toothless.
Yeah, I guess. Yep. And this, like, the whole point was to get ships to Daenerys to come over, and that was that. So that's functional, but not particularly memorable, I guess. Yeah. That's the Iron Islands. Thanks for watching our review.
That was...
Okay, all right. So go ahead. Take it over.
King's Landing was the one I thought was actually the strongest, but was just a bit prolonged. I thought last season and this season could have been condensed to make a much more interesting, functional story. Because we begin with the High Sparrow being introduced, and we end with the High Sparrow leaving the picture in a big green explosion. I thought that was a good story that was just prolonged a little bit, but this was the story that I felt actually had a beginning, middle, and end.
Yes, I agree with that.
And this season ended with that chapter really ending, and then a new one ready to begin next season. And that was the one I thought was the most functional. Yeah. And it's now Cersei is manipulated her way onto the throne.
Right, and I love watching Lena Headey as Cersei, just like week to week. Like you want to talk about how people look forward to like Tyrion scenes or whatever. Like this season, I think I was most looking forward to Cersei sort of just talking to people and just being sneaky and just trying to, like, I dig the like short hair, like she's like this new person, but she's still who she was. You know what I mean? Like even more ruthless. I love the like black like Hot Topic gown that she wears at the end. It's sort of like a callback to like Tywin's sort of get up or whatever. So it's like this really cool thing. What I didn't like, so she kills everybody in the Sept.
Yes.
Like just straight up, like
blows them up.
And that was sort of hinted at, right? You knew was it called Wildfire?
Wildfire.
Was hinted at a bunch of times. And so you knew something was going to happen there before it just sort of suddenly did happen and you wiped the slate clean. She loses her last son, giving a new meaning to the name King's Landing. Which felt kind of crappy to me for him. I know it makes sense. I don't know. Okay, let's just talk about the last episode in general. Okay, so let's just jump into how they just not even mercilessly, just systematically was eliminating people in ways that, like, technically on paper made sense, but gave no emotional rise to me at all whatsoever. I could not care less.
The thing about the deaths in this season, or just the placement of the characters in this episode, It felt like the writers went into the room and said, "Where do we need these characters to end up?" On the very last minute of this episode, where do all the characters need to be? And so they put all the little pieces in place that said, Cersei needs to be here, Tommen needs to be splattered all over the ground, Jon needs to be here, Ramsay needs to be here. And so they came up with this big long list of bullet points where everyone needs to be. And then they started writing the first 3 episodes, and then they had to just immediately
Just like
start moving things
yeah.
into place as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why none of these things really had room to breathe.
Yeah.
You lose Marjorie, Loras, and High Sparrow, and Tommen in the span of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And Meister Pycelle.
Yeah, none of that felt earned to me. You know, and like Cersei made the point with the wildfire or whatever, but I feel like all those other characters aside from the High Sparrow didn't have like anything to do with that, even though they did, and it was a wrap up to arcs that I felt like were disappointingly cut short. Like was that kind of any end for Marjorie or Tommen? Like that's not earned in the same way that like Ned Stark, I would say, earned his death. You know what I mean? It had it serves a very clear purpose. You knew it was going to change. Maybe that's my problem. None of these deaths are going to change the course of the show in any way. You know what I mean? Whether they were a lot like Marjorie felt like she was just sort of wallowing around, and you can just kill her off. Doesn't matter. Tommen was bouncing between the Faith and Marjorie. You just sort of kill him off. He's not. He's a kid. He's not going to do anything without his. You know, as opposed to like Ned Stark dying is obviously a huge moment for the show. You know, there's these turning points. Tywin getting killed, the reasons he gets killed, and then the fact that you take the main linchpin out of King's Landing completely changes the show. Geez, who else died? Every Red Wedding thing completely changed.
Yeah.
Who like how the show functioned.
No one in the Sept had enough power to feel like that their death would impact anything.
Yeah,
right? And like even Tommen, you could say, well, he's the king. He has the most power. But he didn't. He was a figurehead for Cersei.
So and that felt, I think, death. I think I've been going over this for freaking weeks trying to figure out why I did not like how they killed off all those characters. And every path I try, I can't like nail it down. But I think that's a big part of it. That like their deaths don't change anything for the show.
Sure.
At all moving forward. And death is just a quick way to just move on and, like you said, get everybody where they needed to be without lingering on it.
And so, moving on to Dorne, we have Olenna Tyrell now where she needs to be, which is she's 100% anti-Lannister because she knows Cersei did everything.
They had a really good scene together, I thought, in the middle of the season there, Cersei and Olenna.
Which one was that?
They were talking about, I think Cersei was like giving the speech about what she'd do for her children or something like that, and like she related to Olenna in a way that was really cool. It like solidified, like they were trying to come together to take out the High Sparrow. That was basically it. And I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't come together more because I love like freaking Cersei and Olenna together as a tag team, but still like frenemies would be so fun to watch. And the show didn't like deliver on that at all.
Yeah.
So she goes to Dorne. And then...
She goes to Dorne, meets up with the Sand Snakes, who we forgot were a thing since the first episode of the season.
When they killed somebody for some reason.
They killed the guy's brother, the Red Viper's brother, older brother, I want to say. And that whole scene was just them saying, join up with Daenerys. Cool.
Great. Moving on.
Are we on Arya now?
We could do Arya or Jaime.
Oh, Jaime, yeah.
He didn't do anything this season. He's like another Tyrion for me, where like I love watching Jaime do stuff, and I didn't get like he had really cool moments when he was sort of doing the siege or whatever, and he comes in and he tells the Frey guys like, you guys being
suck.
fucking dumb.
You guys suck.
This is how you do a siege. But I think the big thing for Jaime, like you said, getting him where he needs to be, is in a position against his crazy sister. And I think a lot of people at this point are predicting that he's going to have to kill her.
He'll be the Queenslayer.
He'll be the Queenslayer, the King and Queenslayer. He's got a match there. I don't know if I want that for the show. That feels too...
Trite.
Yeah, I guess that's a good word for it.
I don't know at this point with him. I did kind of like the whole thing with the Blackfish, like this guy who's loyal to himself. Well, he was loyal to Starks, but now he's very much just like, it's my city, it's mine. No, you can have it. That Edmure Tully, in a shocking twist, turns everything over to Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
That was fine. I would have felt a little more sad if we had seen the Blackfish at a point since season 3.
Yeah. Well, they kept bringing characters back from that region, which led a lot of people, book readers like myself, to believe that something was happening that did not happen.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And for book readers, I can say the name Lady Stoneheart, and you know who I'm talking about. I don't have to say, in case I don't think the show is going to do something with this so far unseen character. I won't spoil it for those who haven't read the books, but I will say for book readers, I don't know if we want to jump to Arya right now.
We can in a sec.
I think that what they're doing is Arya is taking the role that Lady Stoneheart character had, and she's going to serve that same function, just based on the one thing she did this season.
Okay. All right, so let's go into Arya.
Okay.
This is the one that I think frustrated me the most, was because I was in disagreement with a lot of people in that I was really interested in this story. And people were like, oh, it's so weird, this House of Black and White. I just wanted to come back and kill anyone. What'd you do? And I was like, no, there's going to be something. Something big is going to happen here. They won't just waste
3 seasons.
Yeah, 2 seasons of her in Bravos learning for nothing. And then they did. And I feel betrayed by Arya Stark. Who prior to this that was one of the stories I was the most interested in.
Yeah, I agree that they let that House of Black and White thing go on for way too long before she just magically comes back to Westeros. And do you even get face powers if you're not, or did she steal faces?
An active member of...
Yeah, like, you're getting
that
face
doesn't make sense.
License revoked. I don't know how that works.
But it was so, to just have it literally be, I'm gonna go here and become a merchant of death.
Yeah. And
no, I'm not. Never mind.
Yeah. And I think when I think about, now that I've brought it up, I can't get it out of my head that they're definitely going after the Lady Stoneheart thing with her, in that she's going to become sort of this entity that can't be reckoned with and is going to kill a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't going to know why or what the deal is or what's going on. How is Frey's death going to be handled by character? Are they even going to address Frey's death in the upcoming 13 episodes that are left?
To be honest, I would say no.
Yeah, they're just...
I get the feeling that they're just...
Someone's going to come to Jaime and be like, oh, by the way, that Frey guy died.
And I think they wanted more just that to be an easy way to just show, here's Sansa, she has the face power now. She's gonna wreak some havoc next season. And this was just an example of she can do things.
Yeah.
And I guess there was the whole big theory that Jaqen Hagar was Syrio. I guess that's thrown out the window now.
Yeah, I guess it's not a theory anymore. Look, you can't make all the fan fiction theories.
That's true. You can't. There's only so much fan fiction you can do in a season.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of frustrated with that too. I was very frustrated with that storyline. Whatever.
Yeah. So okay. That's Arya. Do we want to jump to Bran?
Let's go Bran.
See what's left. So Bran was absent last season, and he comes back this season to fill in the backstory.
Yes,
in a way that nobody else can.
He's a walking, talking history book.
Yes. Yeah, he's good. He's a little cheap exposition thing. I guess the big thing in his arc was the hold the door Hodor thing.
Yes.
And I want to point that out as I mentioned this to you, I think, in private or whatever, but that was the one thing that felt really different in this season for me. The way it played out and writing wise, and the showrunners I think did a good job. And I'm like, this feels like a George R. R. Martin thing. This doesn't feel like something that they just made up or thought up. And sure enough, the day after they said it was in the after the episode clip where they're like, yeah, George told us that this happened and we we're like, oh, this is really good.
You have to work this in.
Yeah, and this and even think about, again, going back to the thing of like deaths having an effect. Like Hodor dying has a like if. Does Bran know that he's the one that did that? Did he realize that at the last second?
I don't think he did.
Remember. Yeah.
I don't think he did.
But it has this. It leaves you with this lasting impression that
Bran was unconscious the whole time. I
yeah,
thought.
that's true. That's true. But he was in the.
He was in ward.
In the space.
Ward,
yeah.
He had to have been in ward state.
But now you know you want to talk about changing like the name of the game moving forward, that he can affect things in the past.
Yeah, and I think
that's a huge deal.
That was one of the things I think I texted you as soon as the show ended. I said, this whole hold the door thing, that wasn't it. This was George R. R. Martin's way to get us comfortable with the idea that Bran can change
the past
basically. Or that Bran,
I mean, it's
that
a
Bran
constant cycle.
has
Yeah,
changed.
influenced.
It's the whole Looper thing.
Yeah.
But that Bran, I think the hold the door thing was George's way to get us comfortable.
The show
with
could completely change how that plays out too. So,
can we talk about also with Bran how the White Walker origin story was like casually introduced
just like,
in like 30 seconds? It's like, oh, by the way, the tree people stick a rock in a person and they turn into a White Walker.
And I mean, I guess like the origin isn't as important as somebody might think it. I don't think the big burning question everybody had in their minds is how White Walkers made so much as just where they came from and what, you know, like you told them and they're like, okay, that works, it's functional.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do their thing.
But it just came out of nowhere. I'm sitting there, I'm just like, oh, now we know about White Walkers. Okay.
Can we also talk about how dumb the like tree children thing was? Like, was that really cheesy to you?
Yeah, I don't care about them.
I got the impression that episode that they were saving their budget for something, and then I saw episode 9 was titled Battle of the Bastards, and I was like,
this is what they said about that. Yeah.
How could we forget Sam?
No, we got to finish with one thing with Bran, which is the official reveal of Jon Snow's parents.
Oh, right.
Because that
happened.
That's technically a Bran story.
Yeah, that technically is.
Element.
They got that zoom in on that poor baby, and then it zoomed out on Jon, and that's pretty much. But it didn't. I like how it wasn't a reveal at all. Like she just sort of whispered things.
Yeah.
It's like the show is like, you already know, so we're not even gonna bother literally.
That was the thing I liked about it the most is I really can't fault the show for this.
There's no
in terms of fan fictiony-ness.
Yes, there's no.
This was the thing that everyone had been speculating on since day one.
Literally day one.
Not even of the show, but of the books. So that's
before the show even existed. That was
10 plus years ago. 15? How long? Whenever the first book came out.
Like 30.
Yeah.
20 maybe. 20.
And so
96.
it was. I don't fault the show for doing it for brushing through it because everyone knew it at this point. So I wasn't surprised. So I'm glad they didn't try to be like, Jon Snow is the sister. What?
Well, Jon still has to find out.
Yeah, it's true. Jon doesn't know yet.
We know. Maybe that's why the reveal felt kind of weird to me. Because it was like privately telling the audience that this is what happens, but without actually affecting the characters in any way.
So I'm fine with the way that was handled.
What's Bran gonna do with that information?
I know, right?
Bran didn't even hear what was whispered, although he just knows his aunt had a baby.
I don't know, but I was fine with that. That didn't bother me at all. Samwell Tarly.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
When his father was a racist.
Yeah, big surprise. We already knew that. And follows the tradition.
And he took a sword, and then went
and found where they make the opening credits.
Yeah, he found the CGI opening credits room, and they released lots of doves, and now winter's here. Cool. I guess the one last point I do want to make, and I've said this to Steve a couple times prior to this, but I want to put it on here because I do, which is there's lots of people that I've been arguing with in the last 2 weeks when I say I don't like how the show gave everyone exactly what they wanted. They say, well, that's great. A show should give you what you watch a show, you want something, the show gives it to you. That's a good show. But I don't like how the show gives you what you want every step of the way.
Yeah, and the way that you're expecting it to.
Because spoiler alert for season 4 of Breaking Bad. You had that season, and you ended where I want Walt to take out Gus, and the show gave you that. They gave Walt taking out Gus, but the twists and turns along the way that show took, like there's no way you could have predicted all the little things that would have come up, all of Walt's little roadblocks, and all the clever ways he had to go around them, and all the people he had to bring back into the fold, and all this I hate to say setup, but all these different elements that had been at play since when you first met the little Hector Salamanca, little ding in the bell guy. All these things finally came back and played into each other in a really smart and clever way.
And the show is just not doing Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is not doing that at all.
Yeah.
It's.
I think it's become too big of like a cultural zeitgeist on its own that can't sort of exist without collapsing under the weight of its own popularity.
Sure.
Which is kind of a shame because I don't have a problem with, like you literally just said, I don't have a problem with the specific events that happen in the show. You know what I mean? Like people dying or whatever. It's literally the way that it's being told. And I don't know if they're just getting lazy now that they're near the end, or like you said, they just needed a shortcut to get people where they needed to go that made the season go from like really good to really bad.
Like the Battle of the Bastards could have been way more interesting if let's say Ramsay had, instead of just shooting Rickon in the middle of the field, maybe he had sort of brainwashed Rickon the same way he had brainwashed Theon, and so you're fighting against his army, but you need to be careful that you don't kill these good people that are fighting for, and just to make it more interesting and add some extra elements, more obstacles that the characters need to be clever in avoiding, just to make it more interesting. But this, like, it's so thin. It was so thinly done that
it feels really cheap now, sort of, which is a shame because as the production value of the show increases, the writing is decreasing.
And it's not to the level of Walking Dead placation, which is great.
It could get there though. The fact that they said there's only 13 episodes left, I guess, kind of makes me a little like think. No, they just sort of got to do it. Of course, you're going to do, instead of doing. I have a friend of mine who has a big problem with them doing 2 short seasons instead of just 1 longer season because they're just going to drag it out.
Or even, and this is something George R. R. Martin said, I would be okay with it, and I would be okay with it too. I'd be fine with giving me 10 more seasons in a movie.
10 more seasons?
Sorry. 10 more episodes.
And a movie.
One more regular season and then a big movie just to wrap it all up.
Yeah.
Because that way you can get a little bit bigger of a budget for get some dragons and King's Landing and all that. You're gonna have White Walkers.
I don't think HBO is worried about that, though. I feel like they'll give as much money as needed now at this point.
But I would have liked to have seen a bigger scale thing. That would have been a better finale for me than 2 smaller nonsense
seasons. Yeah, that hopefully aren't fluffed at all.
Yeah, I hope they're very streamlined because the idea of.
I mean, what's left to do? Daenerys comes over. She's gonna do a thing. How long is she going to be crossing the narrow sea before she gets?
If she's on the boat for the next 6 episodes, I might be done. I might not care.
Because like she gets there and her dragons are going to mess everything. Like
there's very little.
And then where do you go from there? I don't know. Do you have Cersei like launch a fight on? I don't know. I literally don't know. It's dicey for me. For even 13 episodes, seems like it's a lot. Seems
like it's a lot.
And I think it's sort of wearing thin a little bit at this point, at least for me.
I had fun, which is a shame because I loved, and I do really enjoy when I'm watching the show, even when it's predictable. When I watch the show, it's enjoyable. But then the minute I shut off and I start thinking about it, I'm like,
Game of Thrones season 6.
There you have it. Yeah. Well, go ahead and leave a comment on this video telling us how wrong we are.
Leave a dislike if you liked it.
Be sure to dislike it and be sure to
unsubscribe
and all this other angry thing. Leave me angry tweets. But yeah, that's our review of season 6 of Game of Thrones. If you've enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we will see you
whenever
next time.
Next time.